Hey, what's up? Serpentine here, taking a look at the turn-based strategy game Might and Magic Heroes 7, developed by Limbic Entertainment, the same guys behind Might and Magic 10 Legacy and Might and Magic Heroes 6. I'll only be covering the single-player skirmishes and multiplayer, as that was the only content open during the beta phase. It's been 4 years since the last Might and Magic Heroes game, a game that was evidently crippled by Uplay's always online DRM. While Heroes 7 is still based on Uplay's platform, the always online DRM seems to be a thing of the past, and rightfully so too, as the game does feature a single player skirmish mode. The game's mechanics haven't received any massive updates to the point where the game has changed significantly. It has, however, received some graphical updates with a much cleaner look to it. If you're new to the franchise, Might and Magic Heroes has you leading a kingdom and army with the primary goal of taking out all other kingdoms in the area. Heroes act as your army's commanders, able to cast spells to give your units advantages in and outside of combat. These heroes can gain levels, allowing you to allocate skill points that can provide pretty important bonuses not only to your armies, but to all aspects of the game. The skill tree is divided into different playstyles, so choosing a certain strategy at the start of the game is a good idea so that you can level your heroes accordingly. Scattered around the map, you will also find hero equipment that gives extra bonuses and relics that will give each visiting hero a permanent boost. If you have enough gold and want to expand your army, you can hire another hero at the Heroes Hall. Each hero will come with a couple of faction units to get your new army started, and again it's best to pick the hero that suits your playstyle or what you're wanting to do with the new army. As for the actual army, it will be composed of units that you enlist at one of your castles. Each week, a certain amount of units will be trained and ready to recruit. The unit types and amount depend on what building upgrades you have invested in at your castle. Due to the weekly production, you do have to use your units efficiently, or you could end up fighting the other kingdom with half an army. There is a chance that neutral camps will want to join your ranks, but there is only a very small chance of that happening. Neutral camps are what you will be attacking early on for resources, items, and bonuses. The closer the camps are to your castle, the easier they will be to defeat, with your chance of success denoted by difficulty descriptors like severe, moderate, and trivial. As time goes on, these camps will get harder and harder, so taking them out early is definitely the way to go so as not to waste too many resources on harder fights. Larger maps contain a lot more interesting objectives that you can fight for. For instance, there are elemental keeps, neutral garrisons, and just a whole lot more. There are underground sections of each map that you will most likely have to use to get to your enemy's base. Discovering new areas of the map, removing the fog of war also gives you a tactical advantage, as you can see any enemy forces moving through those revealed areas. So revealing parts of the underground pass can give you an early warning as to when a large scale attack is heading your way. The combat in game is obviously turn-based and takes place on a rather small chess-like battlefield. Your units are the same type stack and are represented by only one physical unit on the battlefield while also acting as one unit. You can split these stacks outside of combat, but unfortunately you can't during the setup phase just before the combat, which is a little unfortunate, but you can move them around the first 2 rows. In combat, there are only really 3 things you can directly control outside of just moving units, including defensive stance to increase a unit stack's armor, flanking to gain a damage bonus on enemies, and finally using your hero's abilities and attacks to your advantage. I would have liked to see some more abilities for units to use. There are some that come from upgrading them, but it still doesn't feel quite like there is enough utility or different things to consider while in combat. There are also 2 passive elements that will take effect on every round, and that is your war machines. Once researched at your castle, you can purchase 2 different war machines, one offensive and one supportive. The offensive machine is more aimed towards sieging, being very effective at taking out fortifications. However, it will still fire upon enemies if there are no fortified structures on the battlefield. You aren't able to control where it fires though, which is a bit odd, and the same thing rings true for your support machine, that will heal a unit stack at random. Why you can't designate targets for the war machines doesn't really make sense and can make it quite frustrating when you want a certain unit stack healed, but another less important stack gets healed instead. Outside of gameplay, there are 3 different game modes: story mode, multiplayer, and single player. Currently the game supports up to 8 players in the one game, however unless you have a lot of time to spare, I would advise against it for both multiplayer games and single player games. It may be a bit more lenient on multiplayer games if you enforce a short turn timer, but in single player games versing the AI can take a very long time to make its turn, feeling like a minute or two pass by before you can make your next move, and that's just playing with 3 AI. Playing with 7 AI players takes even longer and is a massive problem with the game at the moment that needs to be fixed before the game's release. Speaking of the game's release, there will be 6 different classes available to play on release, including the Holy Empire of Haven, the Wizards of the Academy, the Necromancers of Necropolis, the Barbarians and Orcs of the Stronghold, the Elves of Solven, and finally the Dark Elves of the Dungeon. Each faction has their own unique soundtrack that suits them and is adequately epic. The waiting music, however, is rather odd, and I'm pretty sure it's free to use music from somewhere else, as I've heard it in another game called Coffin Dodgers. It doesn't fit the theme of the game at all, and while you are waiting an eternity for the AI to take its turn, it is really noticeable. It would have been better to just have used the faction's soundtrack on loop. Other features of the game that will be included at release include a couple of map and modding tools. You will be able to create your own maps for the game, along with your own custom campaigns. If you don't want to get too technical but would still like some different maps, there will be a random map generator available. Being an Unreal Engine 4 game as well, you will be able to access the finer parts of the game, allowing you to create your own heroes, your own units, your own towns. Pretty much you'll be able to edit everything in the game as long as you have the skills and knowledge of the Unreal 4 engine. Sharing these mods hasn't really been discussed though, and I doubt Ubisoft would want to take advantage of Steam Workshop due to Steam being their competitor. Altogether, Might and Magic Heroes 7 is more of the same. Is that a bad thing? Well, not really, and the graphical update really does help bring the game franchise forward, as you can see here, with the left being footage from Heroes 6 and the right being footage from Heroes 7. I can't help but compare this game to Age of Wonders 3, and while comparing the two titles, Heroes 7 comes out lacking a lot of depth. However, I think Heroes 7 is aiming for much quicker games as opposed to extremely long play sessions played over multiple days. This is made even more apparent in the combat mode, where Age of Wonders 3 has large tactical maps with cover and elevation mechanics, whereas Heroes 7 opts for a much smaller battlefield, providing only 1 or 2 pieces of half damage cover. So it really comes down to whether you want to spend a couple of hours to complete a mission or a couple of days. If you're after that couple of hour experience, then Heroes of Might and Magic 7 may be what you're looking for. Plus, take into consideration that I was unable to take a look at the campaign, but I have a feeling it'll be much the same. I hope that they do manage to fix the AI turn times, as that is a critical part of the game that does need fixing before the release. Anyway, that's been my player preview for Might and Magic Heroes 7. The game is currently in closed beta with a release date set for the 29th of September on both Steam and Uplay for around $53 or your regional equivalent. If you want to find out more about the game, check out the links below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.